Dark Ages. I beat this game a couple weeks ago when I intended to do a video back then when I actually did it, but due to some circumstances, I didn't have the room or the time to actually get this thing recorded, so I'm only doing it right now. Pre-release impressions were pretty much non-existent from my side. I thought some of the gameplay looked kind of cool and interesting, but by and large, this one wasn't really on my radar. And if I didn't already have Game Pass, I don't know if I would have, even wasted the time getting it. Or at least I would have only waited a long time for a big discount to come out, because this game is not worth €80. And I think that's a sentiment that a lot of people have agreed upon and shared, and I absolutely understand them. What specifically didn't excite me, I don't really know. It was just kind of like the general aesthetic of, oh, it's Doom guy, but now he's fighting in a Warhammer fantasy ripoff thing, which, yes, I know the general gist of the plots of 2016 and Doom Eternal. I don't care about like the Knight Sentinel lore and all that stuff. I already didn't like that Eternal was kind of veering towards Warhammer ripoff, and this game leaning into that even more is just not, it just isn't something that aesthetically and stylistically appeals to me for Doom. The reason why I like Doom is because it's a sci-fi setting that is being invaded by hell. So you've got the juxtaposition between, fire and brimstone, the 9 circles of hell, encroaching on the sci-fi kind of world of the Doom future universe, and then vice versa. You also have like the cyber demons, and the demons are incorporating sci-fi technology into themselves, and then you've got like a literal space marine attacking hell in many missions and levels throughout the series. And so just putting Doom guy in this, like I call, say, Warhammer ripoff thing didn't appeal to me. And something about the gameplay looked really slow and sluggish just from the pre-release footage. Now, I have to prefix this by saying I did not expect to get Doom Eternal 2, nor did I really want Doom Eternal 2. Even with Doom Eternal, I thought that the DLCs were already kind of creaking under the strain of its gameplay loop. They were introducing some really dumb gimmicks, like enemies you can only kill with one fucking specific weapon into the levels, and a lot of the bosses in the DLC were similarly gimmick-based, not very interesting to fight. I thought that the loop of Eternal worked best in the core gameplay, and already by the DLC, it had kind of burned itself out. So, on principle, I like the idea of them trying something different, and not just, here's Doom Eternal, but even more shit happening inside of it. Whether or not that they succeed with this new gameplay style, does it work as its own thing, is something I'm going to get into later on, but on principle, I don't dislike it. For casual players, just play on normal, don't touch anything. But for like older Doom players like myself, who've gone through the series multiple times, I suggest starting out with ultra violence. I shrank the parry window to the smallest possible setting it could be, because honestly, the parry window is kind of fucking ridiculous in this game. Like, my shield is at the center of the screen, and the enemy projectile I'm parrying, quote unquote, is like in this little fucking corner, and it'll still, with the default settings, still parry it, which I thought was just fucking ridiculous. So, shrink the parry window, crank up enemy aggression to the max, crank up enemy projectile speed to the max, increase speed to 120, 130, and I think you're good to go for a first-time playthrough. Those were basically the tools, or rather the options that I used. I had to fuck around with them a little to get it to where I wanted it to be, but around like mission 6 or 7, I more or less had my options settled down for the rest of the playthrough. So, Doom the Dark Ages, or Doom Year Zero as it was known in a Microsoft leak that happened a couple years ago, is a prequel to 2016. It's set during Doom Guy's time with the Knight Sentinels, so that whole civilization hasn't fallen yet. The Khans haven't sold everybody out to hell so that they could increase their power and preserve their longevity. Doom Guy he's not at his weakest here, because he's still obviously superhuman even in this game, but he's not quite as powerful as he is in 2016, and especially Eternal, where he's basically fucking Kratos on steroids. But even as someone who doesn't generally give a shit about the plots of the new Doom games, even I thought the story in this one was pretty mediocre, and it was kinda not doing anything that you expect one of the prequels to do. And before someone tells me, well, Ivan, they're subverting your expectations, like, no. The director of the game said that the reason why none of the cool shit that Doom Guy apparently did in like the backstory of 2016, the reason none of that happens in this game whatsoever is because they want to bake more DLCs and or sequels set during like the Dark Ages period, I guess. And that's why if you're expecting like to see the great battle where Doom Guy killed a fucking Titan by himself and stuck a sword into it, you're not going to see that here. If you expect this game to conclude with Doom Guy having like this big epic battle to end all battles that demons are still fucking talking about like eons later and getting buried in the temple so that Sam Hayden can find him in 2016, that also does not happen. It's just kind of like, okay, there are a few cool things that are implied in the backstory of 2016 and Eternal, and so you expect them to do that here, but gotta crank more sequels out, I guess. So if you're expecting to see any of that shit, just don't. You will be left sorely disappointed, especially if you're super invested in the lore/story of the new Doom games. But we know why people play Doom, and why I primarily play Doom, and that is for the gameplay. Like, this game could have literally no fucking cutscenes or plot whatsoever, and it would functionally make no difference to me. So long as the combat loop is fucking good, we are good. We have, at the very least, a good Doom game. And the combat loop of this is... it does build off of things from 2016, and it is obviously, from fucking space, it's obvious that it's a reaction, and in some cases I feel an overcorrection of Doom Eternal. One of the reasons why Doom Eternal is a lot for some people is its speed. It requires you to constantly be moving. It requires you to constantly not just switch weapons, but to switch modules, or rather modes of weapons. It requires a lot of, you know, instantaneous like decision making. It required a lot of understanding of your own environment, because if you dash into the wrong thing or like dash yourself into a wall like an idiot, the enemies will gang up on you and they will kill you very, very quickly. And in this game, a lot of these like kind of aggressive elements don't really exist in like the baseline difficulty. Even on ultra-violence baseline, it has to be cranked up with like the difficulty modifiers. And in here, the whole kind of premise is that Doom Guy is much slower. You don't have the dash, you can't jump, you certainly can't double jump, but you do have some interesting tools at your disposal. And the main one is, of course, the shield. The shield is there to block some attacks, it's there to parry other attacks, and it's also a means for you to dash around the arena, because you do have the shield bash option where you lock onto an enemy and you can just dart across the battlefield to them and smash them in the face, which is probably some of the most fun I had with this game, like thinking about where am I going to shield bash to either get away from danger or to put pressure on an enemy. And to give credit to the gameplay loop, there are good things in here. I think the shield generally works really, really well. It's a versatile tool that you can use to, like I said, jump around in and out of danger. You can use it to stun lock lots of like upper level enemies. The shield also has certain special abilities that you can equip onto it that can stun massive amounts of enemies, or they can do area of effect attacks, or they can use great single damage against someone you're pairing against. It's a good tool, and the loop with it is fun enough. But my core problem with this game is, well, it's twofold. First off, it's the horde mode mentality that it has for its combat encounters, and its pretty fucking shitty arena design. One of the things that I really appreciated with 2016 and Eternal, both of which I played after I beat Dark Ages so that I can, you know, see if I'm just giving more credit to those old games than they deserve or if it's legit. The verticality and the level design of 2016 and especially Eternal is part of the fun of those games. The arenas have multiple levels. You have little corridors or hallways that like crisscross against each other that go underneath the upper level of the arena. You have platforms you can jump in on. You have even swings you can swing off of or to swing back into danger. That's part of the challenge and fun of those arenas and those games for me. It's not just fight the bad guys, it's also have good situational awareness. And if you don't have that, especially in Eternal, you will get fucked over. Enemies will bum rush you, and they will absolutely exploit even a few precious seconds of your lapse in judgment. In this game, almost every single battle is in a big, sprawling open arena or in a narrow corridor where you're just smashing through lots and lots of hordes of demons, most of which are completely interchangeable, almost all of which act completely the same, and it's just not as interesting as the previous Slayer games. You just lose so much by just plopping Doom Guy in a big open arena and just having him slaughter like hordes and hordes of mostly same shit enemies. Like, there are some enemies that are part of the challenge. Hell Knights, I think, are actually a big upgrade in contrast to the prior games. Revenants are also cool. You also have kind of like this witch doctor enemy who has like a decoy you have to kill before you can kill the main one. But almost all of the challenge is based around the stronger demons, and all the other demons, even ones you expect to perhaps have some interesting gameplay loops like the Kako demons or the Mancubi or the Arachnotrons, they're all fucking fodder. Like 80% of like the previous demons in the prior two games that had some kind of interesting enemy behavior or something that they did to fuck you over have just been turned into basically demonic Dynasty Warriors characters. You just massacre them with absolutely no thought or regard. They're basically just there to pelt you and to annoy you while you're handling like the 5 enemies in the whole game that are an actual challenge. And it is easier for people. It absolutely is. It is an easier gameplay loop than 2016 or Eternal, but it's not a more interesting loop for me. Like I said, one of the reasons why I liked those older games was the arena design. They were very vertical. You had multiple levels, sometimes as much as 3 of them that would crisscross, and you can like leap across from one side to the other, and this was part of the challenge, and there's really none of that here. You can basically beat the whole game by just running around in fucking circles in almost every arena until you kill the big bastard who's like the centerpiece of the fight. The few battles that are actually interesting in the game are the ones where you get locked into a relatively small room and you have to fight a handful of elite enemies all at once. Those fights were some of the best ones in the whole game for me because you don't have much room to walk around. You don't have much place to dodge. You just have to be really fucking good about when you're going to dash into danger, dash out of it, what kind of weapon you're going to use, when to time your melee strike, when to time your parry. Those fights were the best ones, but a lot of them are completely optional, and most of the main game's fights are, like I said, big open arena, run around in circles until you kill the big bastard who'll bring down the barrier keeping you inside. And this is the part where I say it's an overcorrection of Eternal. I think this gameplay loop could have existed just fine as is in small arenas that had more verticality to it or just plainly more design. I think these are the weakest encounter arenas out of the Slayer games, and I think that even like all of the OG like Doom games completely beat it out. Like, one of the reasons why Doom is difficult, even like the oldest ones on like the higher difficulties, is because you also have to have like good situational awareness. And that's just really not a factor in this one, and it is a shame. It does make it immediately much less interesting than the prior Slayer games. And the other thing that takes it out of is, like I said, a lot of the enemies act like fucking Dynasty Warriors enemies in Dark Ages. Like the imps, like the most basic fucking ass enemies in 2016 and Eternal were cool because they would run away from you. Like, these guys would, skirt around you. They would kite you with fireballs. They would run away from you. They would go up and down levels. Like, they would climb up one level, kite you, run away, break your line of sight and then try to sneak around you. And a lot of enemies, not all of them, but a lot of them did have these interesting behaviors where even the enemies were using the fighting arenas to their advantage to fuck you over. And here, almost all of the enemies are just Dynasty Warriors style cannon fodder. They're just there to be easily and mercilessly slaughtered in massive droves while you have to take on like the big actual threats that exist. But even calling like the upper level enemies of this game a threat is really not that big because they all functionally have the same fucking gimmick. They're all wait for the green thing to glow, parry, hit them while they're stunned, parry, hit them while they're stunned, parry again. And make no fucking mistake, this is not fucking Sekiro or Claire Obscure, where you actually have to like read the animations. It's just, oh, he's glowing green, parry, glowing green, parry, parry, parry. A couple enemies like Azrak, like a boss you fight a couple times, they do have like actual animations you have to read. Like they'll actually have pauses between attacks, and you can fuck yourself over if you try to parry too soon. But by and large, the gameplay has been absolutely dumbed down. It has been dumbed down even in comparison to 2016, which was pretty simple already to begin with, but I think this one is even more so than that. And so even judging this based on its own like criteria, I think this is the weakest gameplay loop they've invented for the Slayer games. I actually want them to bring out the DLC so that I can see how can they push this into like more interesting territory, because I think there is potential here for them to do that, but as it stands in the baseline game, the combat loop was not to my liking. Enemy variety is not what it used to be. Enemy behavior has been almost completely stripped out. A lot of them just fucking stand there for you to massacre them completely. And yeah, I'm not going to say the game ever got boring for me. The game is still made by some of the best industry professionals around when it comes to making good FPS combat, but it was just fine with a few moments of, hey, this is actually pretty fucking good, but that's really it. But the gameplay isn't just like standard Doom fare. There are a couple of like gimmick levels that I was also not very excited about pre-release, but in the end, I actually kind of dug the mech levels. Like, they're obviously much more stripped down than the base game, but I do think that they have a solid enough loop that resembles the standard Doom loop, where it is still kind of fun to just be in a big fucking robot and beat the shit out of equally big demons. And I think that one of the things that makes the mech levels fun for me is because the mech just destroys everything in its path. Like, when you walk anywhere, it feels like you're causing a small fucking earthquake. You're trampling over demons. You're destroying causeways with absolutely no regard for anybody's life. You're toppling entire fucking buildings with just your step. And so these levels, which are thankfully brief and they never outstay their welcome, they do a decent enough job of being fun on their own terms. But the dragon levels, the dragon levels kind of suck, I have to be really honest. And I think the biggest problem with them is that they strip out the gameplay so severely that it's just attack turret, dodge green thing, attack turret, land, do standard Doom gameplay, jump on dragon, attack turret. It's like really, really basic bitch stuff. And it's really weird because the game also has like enemy fighters in it, but they almost never fucking fight back. You're just chasing them through the levels until you blow them up. There's no like actual combat with the dragon outside of dodging the turrets, and it's so fucking weird that they wouldn't even give like specialized enemies. Like they're enemies that'll hunt you down in the sky and you have actual aerial battles with them. Or they never even do something that like fucking Halo figured out like almost 20 years ago, where you can like maybe even like choose to fight a big enemy on foot or on the dragon, and the game can like dynamically adjust to you doing that. Like, remember in Halo 3 where you have like the scarab fights? Like, those fights are really cool, not because they're spectacle fights, but because they're spectacle fights that you can take on in multiple different ways. You can take them on in an aircraft. You can take them on in like a warthog you can jump on the scarab on foot and blow it up from the inside out. And when I was seeing like some footage where the dragon would land on like an enemy ship and you can like maybe take off on it, I thought, hey, that could be actually pretty cool. Like the game could let you choose if you want to blow up the ships in a dragon or you want to do it on the ground, or maybe even some mix of the two, like maybe like an evolution of Halo's scarab fights. I think that would have been pretty cool, but nope. The dragon fights are pretty much just fly around big empty levels, occasionally shoot down enemy jets that barely fucking fight back, and dodge turret shots. That's it. Really boring, not very interesting, and honestly, I think a lot of like the resources that were wasted on the dragon levels could have been used to maybe spice up like some of like the existing levels, because they are really big, pretty window dressing. But that's all it comes down to. Considering the soundtrack, now, I was really confused when they said that Finishing Move Incorporated would be doing the soundtrack for this game. I was sure that they were going to bring back Andrew Hulshalt, who was one of the two people who worked on the Ancient Gods DLC for Doom Eternal, but that wasn't the case. I believe this is their first time doing like a metal soundtrack. And I'm not going to be a dickhead and say that the whole soundtrack is shit, because it's really not. There are a few songs that are good, like When the Shadows First Lengthened, Unchained Predator, Unholy Siege. There are a few songs that I have and can listen to outside the game itself and consider them pretty good. But by and large, a lot of the soundtrack is just kind of like generic metal tunes. I think that one of the reasons why the soundtrack doesn't stick out as much is because they go really, really, really fucking heavy on the guitars in every song. It's like big, heavy, loud, fast metal guitar riffs, which sound good, they sound cool, but Doom's previous soundtracks were really cool because they had like more variance to them. Like some songs would de-emphasize the guitars and let the drums come into more focus, or there would be like this ebb and flow where the part of the song would be really guitar heavy and then it would maybe like slow down or focus on like another instrument. Here it's just constant loud guitar riffs blaring into your ears. It's well produced, I won't say that, but it is easily the weakest of the soundtracks for the newer games. And even I thought like Hulshalt's like Ancient Gods DLC was already kind of like a downgrade from Eternal's soundtrack, but I thought that, hey, with another chance, he might be able to do something more interesting. In fact, I think that what they should have done is maybe gone for like a more symphonic metal for this game, because if you're already going for like the Warhammer ripoff aesthetic, like go for the power metal tunes, like go for something that sounds maybe a bit more operatic, maybe have like some like fucking nasty violin riffs or something like that. I think that would have been much more interesting, and I think it would have helped the soundtrack, at the very least, sound more unique in comparison to other Doom scores. But yeah, those are kind of like my overall thoughts on the Dark Ages. If it's not obvious already, I think this is the weakest of the Slayer games. It's not like bad or anything. It's just kind of like whatever the fuck. Like I could have taken or left this game, and you know it didn't change my life in a positive or negative way. It just exists. It's like the most like 6 or 7 out of game that I've played in a long time. Is it still better than the vast fucking majority of shooters that have been put out since Eternal? Oh, absolutely. It is, like I said, still some of the best professionals in the industry when it comes to shooter design, having a crack at a new system. Kudos to them for trying. Kudos to them for going in this direction and trying to make it work. I think that the gameplay loop is way too stripped down and dumbed down from like even 2016. Maybe they can make it more interesting with the DLCs or maybe even a sequel. But as it stands, if the next game just decides to drop this whole system in favor of something else, you'll hear no complaint from me. Where would I rank it amongst like the Doom games? Probably like at the bottom third of them. It's definitely one of my least favorite Doom games for a whole variety of reasons. But it's not like a bad game. I don't think Doom even has a bad game, even Doom 3, which is still the weakest of the series in my opinion. But even still, that game has a lot of things going for it that even shooters nowadays don't. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Dark Ages. Like, if you want to try it out, get a Game Pass for a month for $10, or I believe €12. Try it out. It's a good time waster. You'll get like a good 12 to 13 hours of fun out of it. Maybe if you're someone who didn't like 2016 and especially Doom Eternal, I think you're going to like this one a lot. But if you're someone who was a fan of those previous two games, have tempered expectations. I think you'll have a decent time with it like I did, but it never really reaches the heights of its predecessors in terms of, art style, score, or of course gameplay.